What types of migrants coming in are creating a positive, net positive valuation?
Nobody wants to do that.
Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Because then you might get some results you don't want. I mean, for instance, why don't we have crime stats for Germany, for instance, which is one of the countries that have taken the largest number of migrants in the last decade?
There's no crime stats for Germany?
You can't break them down by demographic.
It's true. As this page shows, we have no reliable data on how many people are actually entering Europe, and nobody tracks it properly. Even when data is collected, it's often difficult to find. I spent around 30 minutes searching and could only come across this limited information.
Who thinks that's a good idea?
Do it for France. That's a really interesting one.
Crime
France
stats for France. Okay. Damn. So it shows the growth, almost 100% in the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
What did happen?
Well, we don't know because we don't have the facts.
Are you trying to tell me that no one on the conservative side has the brass or the ability to get in there and find ways to get the data, not even independently research organizations?
It's extremely hard to do. I mean, there are groups, I mean, Migration Watch in the UK has tried to do some of it. You can't collect, it's very hard to collect crime stats, particularly when, as in most countries on the continent, the identities of the accused are kind of hidden from the public. There's a trend in the reporting, for instance, in Germany of any crime that you don't give the name of the person. You do first name and then letter. Same thing in the Netherlands. Now, of course, you can tell a certain amount from the first name.
It's true that in Germany, they are only allowed to reveal the first name and not even a photo of the convicted person. This makes it really difficult to identify the individual, as the country's strict privacy laws prioritize protecting personal information, even in criminal cases.
By the way, this is, well, let's just linger on this for a second. There is a reason for this, is my point. There's a reason why you can't drill down into this. Look at, if you want to do one that's been very controversial and very obvious in recent years, which is the increase in rates in Sweden. This is an enormously toxic issue. There you go. I don't know whether it's increased from 21. Increased nearly 20, went up from 16,000 to 24,000. By the way, I mean, this is in an area which people should really care about. I mean, like, stats is something that is very important to collect properly. It's one of the most underreported crimes. A lot of women don't feel able to come forward. You should have a society in which people are willing to come forward, and you should have a society in which when an increase in rape happens or sexual assault, the society worries about it because something's going wrong. For instance, if it's that the men who are already in the society are suddenly really getting into rape, you would want to find out what was causing them to do that. But it's possible that that's not the explanation. But you can't really know because we don't have data, it won't be collected, and it probably never will be.
Who in the right mind think that's a good idea to not pull up data? That's one. Second, why aren't the guys on the opposite side doing their part to pull up, we
don't know how many people are in our countries. We don't even have numbers. We round to the nearest million on illegals in relatively small countries.
To millions?
We round to millions in countries about illegals, never mind onto legals. About the best, most reliable data you can get on, I think, any Western country on this is the census that happens every 10 years in the UK. Even that is not that easy to trust because it's massively underreporting people in very high-density immigrant areas who I do not believe in their entirety respond to the form from the US data authorities, the UK data authorities that comes every 10 years.
In the next part, Douglas explains why the media doesn't conduct its own research, and even independent journalists shy away from doing so. I would add that the people who own the media are likely uninterested in pursuing it, even though it would attract many views.
Used by some bad people, for sure, in a bad way. There would definitely be bigots and racists and pot stirrers who would, as with all dangerous things, pick it up and run with it. You might also say it's the right of the public to know. But my view is that for a long time, the view has been the public can't be trusted with the facts, so don't give them the facts.
Public cannot be trusted with the facts if they don't give them the facts?
The public cannot be trusted with the facts, so don't give them the facts.
Why? If you give it to them, what do they do with it? They
We
make
don't-
the
we don't
counter
know.
argument. They kind of expose the lie.
We don't know. They could do anything. I mean, I made this point after the recent riots in Britain. I said, when you have mass legal and illegal migration at this speed and at this rate, and with people from such a different identity,
Yeah.
one of the things you do is that you move what was a very high trust society into a very low trust society.
Okay.
And that can happen from stats like this, or it can simply happen on who do you give a pound to when they're begging on the streets.
So if I look at this here, number of illegal crossings between border crossings, this is the one I just sent, in the EU from 2009 to 2022.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where the 1.8 million in 2015.
Yeah. By the way, which was vastly undercounted. In 2015, I was touring around all the places that migrants were coming in, and the camps and refugee camps in southern Europe, and the Greek islands and the Italian islands, south of Italy, and so on. I followed all this firsthand. And I saw it all. I saw the boats all coming in, and the authorities greeted the boats and helped them in. And it was there was partly a humanitarian catastrophe, of course, coming from the Syrian civil war. But the beginning, it was we should allow in Syrian refugees, which there's an argument for sure. But very soon, as I saw with my own eyes, people were coming from all over Africa, the Middle East, the Far East. I met people who were from Asia, who were from relatively well-off backgrounds, but they saw that the borders were open, and so they came. And of course, they're still in Europe. None of them have been removed.
Okay, let me ask you a crazy question.
I would argue that on this topic, Douglas is unlikely to comment or speak openly about the truth. I'm not sure why, but he seems hesitant when addressing this particular questions.
So who has more power and influence? UK or the entire Jewish community?
What, the entire Jewish community in the UK?
No, worldwide.
Oh, worldwide.
Yeah.
Well, and the British government, I'd have thought. I mean, if you take out the Israeli government, because they've got all the benefits of a state, but sure, I mean, the British government is
who is
fifth largest economy in the world.
So fifth largest economy in the world. So who? Okay, because this is where it kind of takes me. You know how in the Middle East, Iran had the Shah of Iran, and they used to call him the puppet of the West, right? Mm-hmm. Until they realized he's a big boy now. He's no longer a puppet. Mm-hmm. You can't control him, and he became his own man. Then when he did, they found a way to get a guy who was living in France.
When you say they found a guy,
whoever the establishment may be, whether it's US, UK, they found a guy that is living in France, Khomeini. Khomeini goes to Iran. The Shah falls.
Sure.
Iran's been a mess for 45 years since the fall.
But that wasn't Britain and France. Or that wasn't America and France that did that.
I didn't say no. He lived in France.
He lived in France. And very unwisely, the French authorities allowed him to fly to Tehran. That, by the way, is one of the flights I most wish had never taken off.
Yeah, you and I both. But where I'm going with it is, did that happen intentionally because they were getting too scared of Iran becoming too powerful, and they wanted to kind of, cause a fall? And this was their way of saying, here you go. Kind of like... go to Russia, right? The argument that is made where when the Tsar, Nicholas II, he's in Russia, he has the power, generation, family, can't be controlled. You can't tell him what to do. He wasn't a puppet of anybody. But then, hey, maybe Lenin could be a puppet. So let's bring the Bolshevik in. Some of the arguments that are made.
What? Who makes that